One-on-one with Leon Panetta. Our very own Maria Bartiromo sat down with the former Defense Secretary and Chief of the CIA to discuss North Korea, the ongoing battle between congressional Republicans and the Department of Justice, and a push for change in Saudi Arabia.
A lot of people will say that things have changed with regard to the Middle East in this last 17 years. Now we see an unlikely alliance between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, for example. You see the Crown Prince saying we want to live like normal people, letting women drive, etc. Your thoughts on that? Do you believe that?
Oh, I think, I've had the opportunity to meet with the Crown Prince several times. I think he has a vision about where he wants to take Saudi Arabia for the future. I give him a lot of credit for wanting to take it in the right direction. It's not going to be easy. Saudi Arabia has a long history. There are a lot of people who are involved in power there. So this is going to be a real challenge. But I think we should support him in terms of the direction that he wants to take that country. In addition to that, they're an ally. And in dealing with the threats from Iran, from ISIS, from dealing with Syria, I think it is important to develop a strong coalition made up of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, other moderate Arab countries, Israel, Turkey, our allies in Europe. We need to build that kind of coalition in order to try to deal with some of these challenges we just talked about.
Do we have a relationship with Turkey that you believe in? I mean, there's some questions about the Muslim Brotherhood.
Lots of questions. Lots of questions about Erdogan. And the kind of leadership that he's providing right now. But we have bases in Turkey. As director of the CIA and as Secretary of Defense, I dealt with our Turkish allies. I think we have to keep them as allies. I think it's important to work with them, which means it's going to take some strong diplomacy to deal with their concerns and make sure that we're working with them rather than against them on some of the issues we have to deal with.
Let me move on to Asia, because now, of course, there's North Korea that is front and center. How significant should we believe these meetings have been? The head of North Korea meeting with the head of South Korea, meeting with President Xi in China, and now, of course, planning to meet with President Trump. Your thoughts on what has transpired?
I start from the principle that I don't trust North Korea. And I think that's probably a good place for the president to be. They're engaged in what I call accommodation. This is a period of accommodation. You look at the history of dealing with North Korea, we've gone through periods of provocation and periods of accommodation. Even we try to work with them when there are these periods of accommodation, but ultimately we found out that we couldn't trust them, that they wouldn't stick to what they said they would do. So I'm concerned about whether or not they're serious about denuclearization. Because, look, North Korea, their principal goal is to protect their regime. How are they protecting their regime? They develop nuclear weapons. They're developing ICBMs. I find it very difficult to believe that they're suddenly going to give up on that because they would view it as jeopardizing the existence of the regime. So the real fundamental question here is, are they going to take steps to denuclearize? How are we going to verify it? How are we going to inspect it? What are we going to do about missiles? What are we going to do about nuclear tests? All of that involves tremendous negotiation, preparation, and the kind of careful diplomacy that, very frankly, I haven't seen yet. So we're a long way, I think, from developing a comprehensive agreement. I hope that we can get there, but I think we should be vigilant and we should be very cautious.
Yeah, Condoleezza Rice said a similar statement to me last week and said, look, she's dealt with his father, Kim Jong-il, and he would make these promises and then blow it off when it was time to actually deliver.
Yeah, that's the way they are. We found that to be the case with almost all of the Kims, and they all were interested in the regime. They all were interested in preserving it, and they were willing to do whatever was necessary in order to get that done. So I think it's very important right now, if the president is in fact going to sit down at a summit meeting, that there is no time to develop the kind of comprehensive agreement I just talked about. I don't think, you can't do it. It's going to take months. So my hope is that if they are going to meet, there can be some agreement on framework, on some broad goals, but then allow negotiators from all of these key countries to sit down and work through the elements that have to be decided.
So what do you make of what Kim Jong-un has been doing, releasing 3 hostages today?
He's smart. He's playing this very smart. He's not only releasing the hostages, he's not only playing nice, he not only went to the Olympics he's not only met with the South Korean president, but even beyond that, he's now released these prisoners. He's also gone to China. Smart move, because he is basically sealing his ally, China, so that they will support whatever position he takes in these negotiations. I think he's taken some very smart moves, and my fear is that we don't get caught flat-footed. We have to work with South Korea, we have to work with Japan, we have to work with our other allies in Asia to develop a comprehensive, unified approach as to what we're going to stand for. And I don't see that happening yet.